He's gonna be a star.
Fight fans, welcome back. No matter how vicious the knockout, and no matter how loud the screams, the rapid progression of a boxing superstar can turn even the most impressive of moments into yesterday's news.
They came to see a knockout by that man right there.
Some serve a purpose.
Golovkin, you are next, my friend.
Others fade into obscurity. There's a select few, however, that continue to age like fine wine.
Maybe we have seen a piece of the future, a prospect with a capital P.
It won't be the last time we see him.
It was a night that punched well above its weight, featuring an experienced veteran who threatened to knock the freckles off boxing's latest heir apparent.
So it doesn't offend you?
No.
Bad blood, stylistic intrigue, and a dramatic climax. Though this particular highlight wouldn't resurface until a decade later, following some sinister twists and turns of Father Time.
For the moment, Floyd Mayweather is sailing free with only the Filipino frigate somewhere close to him.
15 years ago, midway through 2010, boxing's lower weight classes were left in limbo as a prime Manny and prime Floyd went tit for tat, elevating the sport and their respective fan bases.
In terms of the event and what the world wants to see, there's nothing that comes close to Pacquiao and Mayweather.
Manny was preparing for a deadly leap of faith against Margarito, and Floyd had just overcome a rare moment of adversity to conquer Mosley.
If Manny Pacquiao wants to fight, it's not hard to find me.
After his shortcoming against Mayweather, Sugar Shane's redemption would start with an LA revival against Sergio Mora, an exciting spectacle that would showcase some of boxing's future stars.
Give it up from Guadalajara, Mexico.
It featured a fan favorite in 23-year-old Victor Ortiz, a rising 21-year-old Keith Thurman, 18-year-old Frankie Gomez. Even at this stage, however, it was another 20-year-old prospect garnering more attention than anybody.
A tus 21 años hay mucha gente que dice que tú ya eres el ídolo del boxeo mexicano.
Oscar was 18 months removed from the sport after his final Pacquiao drubbing.
I underestimated him, but it didn't matter. I was a dead man walking. I couldn't.
And while he probably still wasn't quite ready to admit it as such, his torch had been unofficially passed to the latest Mexican heir apparent.
For me and for his team, it's time. Let's put him in a tough fight. Let's put him in with the tough guys, with the Kirklands, the Mayweather. He wants everybody.
Este es el mejor boxeador no solamente de México, va a ser el mejor boxeador del mundo, tiene el paquete completo y esto es solo el inicio de algo grande para Saúl el Canelo Alvarez.
With a 30-0 record, Saúl Alvarez had earned a fearsome reputation in Mexico by dominating older and more experienced opposition.
La confrontación, Ricardo, ahí lo tenemos.
En el primer round salí a ver qué mostraba y pues me mostró muy poco y tuve que terminar rápido, ¿no?
Del mexicano.
And having already impressed on his first big U.S. show,
Cotto seems to be buzzed. Good counter right hand up and under.
Canelo was now back on American soil.
18 de septiembre en celebración del Bicentenario de México. Es una cartelera donde no es la figura principal, pero estará prácticamente como tal.
And while his tongue hadn't yet grasped the English language,
Estoy contento y motivado, ansioso de ya estar ahí porque sé de la importancia de la cartelera.
fans were taking notice as his fists spoke fluent violence. Floyd was watching, but he probably wasn't yet paying attention.
If we keep racking up top-notch victories, then will Mayweather and Canelo fight in the future? Absolutely.
But he would be. because the next pairing would see Canelo pitted against one of TBE's former foes.
Es una verdadera prueba de fuego ante el primer ex campeón del mundo que se enfrenta. Ambos vienen con seguridad de ganar. Nunca ha noqueado precisamente Valdomir. El Canelo dice que va a ser el primero y por su parte Valdomir dice que el Canelo es solo un niño.
A true sink-or-swim moment against one of the most durable men in the business.
So it's almost like a lose-lose because Valdomir's got a chin in granite. So, I mean, if he loses, he lost to an old guy, his career is done. I mean, honestly, you know, he's ruined. His only shot going into this fight was doing something that nobody thinks he can do, and that's knock out Baldomir. That's not going to happen.
At this stage, Baldomir was respected. He had to be. He was an iron chin, 45, 12, and 6 veteran who'd never been stopped in 16 years of professional activity.
Introducing Carlos Tata Baldomir.
A tough Argentine underdog that forced his way into the spotlight and then stayed there.
Get is hurt. Get is hurt. Badly hurt by that last right hand.
He wasn't quite a Maidana, but he was a handful. And he'd gone 8 years unbeaten before his own Floyd Mayweather dismantling.
Floyd Mayweather, we told him, takes a few rounds to dial it in. From that point forward, it's virtually flawless. He's already in that right hand groove now.
A night where the bull versus matador was in full effect, as a slipping and sliding Mayweather even broke his hand on the Argentine's head.
I hurt my right hand in the middle of the fight, but first I want to thank God for the victory. I pulled through it, you know, my team rooted me on, my fans rooted me on, and I just went out there and put on a boxing plan.
Touch gloves and good luck to the both of you. Boom.
Sam.
Upsets against Zab Judah and Arturo Gatti, however, showed that if you had flaws, Baldomir would find them.
Big left hook shot, and Arturo's not throwing, and that'll do it.
And if you lacked heart, he'd expose it.
Nice strike by Baldomir. I think that stunned Judah. Yeah. It hurt Zab Judah.
And what he lacked in wow factor, he continually made up for with grit and determination.
You hit him in the head with a sledgehammer, and you're not going to hurt him.
So now, with all that wealth of experience behind him, he certainly didn't plan on being anyone's stepping stone.
What did he think when Golden Boy said, "Do you want to fight Baldomir, somebody so old, so tough?"
Despite a ton of Latino talent and roaring crowds,
Live on HBO pay-per-view, Saúl Canelo Alvarez.
the new Mexican superstar would be met with resistance.
No me va a tocar enfrentar a campeones mundiales. Solo voy a enfrentar a un niño que tiene 35 peleas. ¿Por qué le digo niño? Porque tiene solamente 20 años.
Things would eventually turn dark for Baldomir, but right now, he was enjoying his time in the sun and embracing the villain role, patronizing Canelo and referring to him as a boy.
Todos querían arrancarle la cabeza a ese niño, pero ahorita lleva más de 40 peleas y nadie le ha logrado arrancar la cabeza. Así que yo creo que este niño dejó de ser niño y ahora es un hombre y el sábado lo va a demostrar ser.
I'm happy he's coming with that confidence. I'm happy that he's talking too much. It makes me feel better. He made me think better in this fight.
From press conferences to weigh-ins, all the way to fight night, Mexican pride was in full effect.
This is the biggest fight week of the year.
But if we knew then what we know now, those calls for violence would have been even more deafening.
See the 19-year age difference between the phenom and the fading veteran.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that this was the main event, as stood, ready to be announced, a green Canelo appeared to show those subtle signs of nervousness.
There is enormous underground side street buzz about this fighter.
The butterflies were there, the pressure was on, but this young man was built for the occasion.
And again, the narrative, Baldomir was knocked out once, a million years ago in the 4th or 5th fight of his career. Nobody can remember it. That's the job in front of Alvarez.
The opening couple of rounds saw very little ground conceded, with both men holding their nerve.
Already there's a red mark on Valdemir's cheek.
Valdemir said, Jim, that he was going to knock the freckles off his face.
Valdemir lands a few punches, stepping inside. Alvarez seems to be looking for something
As the fight went on, Canelo's sharpness became more and more apparent.
Was that a little bit of a wobble from Valdemir after the right hand from Alvarez?
But a stone-faced Valdemir, as expected, would just keep coming.
Y pienso que cuando en algún momento lo pueda cruzar con mis manos, la va a sentir y bueno, ahí sí que va a empezar a correr o si yo pienso que si se para enfrente mío le va a ir muy mal.
This raw version of Canelo reminds you just how much he's improved over the years, but he could still set traps.
Hard right hand by Alvarez. That one shook Valdemir.
And with those whipping shots to body and head, he could still do some serious damage.
Fighters in welterweight division. And the possibility.
The Argentinian seemed to be holding out in hope that Saul would start to fade.
You know, Jim, I think he's getting discouraged, hitting the guy with them Sunday punches, and the guy's going nowhere. I mean, Valdemir takes some shot. He really does have a good jaw.
You keep him busy, keep him thinking, and finish off with more than 2 punches. You're waiting.
And opening the 6th, Larry Merchant, a tough customer as always, still wasn't sold.
This is a solid workmanlike effort so far by the 20-year-old Alvarez. And I can't say that he's dazzled me, Jim.
His opinion, however, was about to be swayed, as just 3 minutes later, everything would change. With just a few seconds left of the round, both men entered the danger zone to land shots of their own.
I had several punches that connected him and I had him hurt, but that was a building process and I hurt him there at the end.
Unfortunately, as Canelo rolled and countered, this was a split-second firefight that only had one winner.
That was a dazzling finish.
That is a marketing platform.
This still remains one of the most devastating shots of Canelo's career, even some 32 fights and 15 years later.
What you saw tonight, there's still things to be learned, but he's going to get progressing, he's going to get better, because he's ready for the bigger fights.
Cracking a chin that had held up for nearly 2 decades to launch a career that would only improve from this point onwards.
It's going to be a star, and a star is a strong word to throw out there, but I'm gonna say it, he's gonna be a star. Saul Canelo Alvarez.
The same certainly couldn't be said, however, for the man regaining his senses in the opposite corner.
I just can't believe, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, and I just can't believe what this man has been arrested for.
¿Ese fue el día más feliz de tu vida?
Sí.
¿Sí? Incluso más feliz, no sé, se me ocurre de aquellos momentos en que fuiste papá.
Ser padre es muy feliz, muy contento y ganar un campeonato mundial son diferentes alegrías, pero por supuesto que sobrepasa todas las...
The Argentine would fight on for a few more years before eventually bowing out in 2014.
Un gusto encontrarte bien, trabajando, recordando los grandes momentos, pero también con grandes proyectos a futuro. Eso me parece muy bueno.
But just 18 months after that final bout, things turned dark.
Comenzamos contándoles sobre la caída de un campeón que recibió el peor veredicto y no en un cuadrilátero, sino en la justicia santafesina. Un golpe de knockout para Tato Carlos Valdemir.
There's very little information surrounding Valdemir's circumstances, maybe due to the sensitivity of the case, but a bit of digging reveals accusations of drinking, gambling, and a wild lifestyle that would eventually catch up with him.
¿Alguna vez fue violento con vos, psicólogo Valdomir? En los últimos tiempos sí. Ya estaba muy violento, pero verbalmente.
In 2019, having already spent 3 years in pretrial detention, Valdemir was sentenced to 18 years in jail for some of the worst crimes imaginable, involving his own daughter.
El abogado de la familia de la víctima asegura que se llegó a esta sentencia por la contundencia de todas las pruebas presentadas.
And while Carlos had always maintained his innocence, promising that the case would be overturned, very little has been heard or seen since that infamous middle finger salute.
This guy's name should be not spoken again in boxing.
And that is a brutal-ass prison system over there in New Mexico. He will have to PC up, or they will friggin' brutalize his ass. I don't give a damn if he's a friggin' boxer or not.
In contrast, a few months prior to that guilty verdict, Canelo was fighting Danny Jacobs at the T-Mobile Arena for an audience of over 1.2 million worldwide, and now sits amongst the best to ever do it.
¡Viva México, cabrones!
Another story that highlights the stark contrast between life's scintillating highs and its lowest of lows. Not just inside the ropes, but far beyond them.